Sup everyone, rant time. Um, we're just talking about people who call themselves a fighter. First of all, definition of a fighter: someone who actually fights. Someone who takes challenges, steps up to the challenge, doesn't pick and choose. Just because someone actually gets in and gets on the stage or in the ring at a fight show, I still don't consider them a fighter because a fighter actually challenges themselves with step ups and tries to get to the next level and all that sort of stuff. So, people who jump in on shows with a guaranteed win in the bag due to being looked after by promoters or whatever, definitely not worthy of the fighter title. But that's not where we're at today. We're at what point in your training fighting period do you get to be called a fighter, and how long after your last fight are you still a fighter? Pretty simple in my books. Other gyms different, they think it a little bit differently, but you're not a fighter until you've had 10 fights. Until then, you're just having a fight. You're just getting some experience. Once you've had 10 fights, I'll consider you a fighter. As for how long after you have your last fight, if you're not actively training to fight, you're no longer a fighter. You may come back and start fighting again and you become a fighter again. But if you're not actively training, if it's been, you've had your last fight was a few years ago and you're not actively looking for fights due to any other reason, but you have an injury and you're working to get your injury right, you're still putting in the hours daily, weekly to chase your dream, then you're still a fighter. But if you're going into training twice a week, doing fuck all, just so you can still call yourself a fighter because you used to fight and you've had 3 years off or something, you're fucking kidding yourself. You're no longer a fighter. You're someone who enjoys Muay Thai. Doesn't mean that you can't be a fighter again, but while you're not actively fighting, you're not a fighter. It's plain and fucking simple. Good example of the other side of the story with an injury, someone like Yolanda Schmidt from PTJ in Sydney. She had a pretty major hamstring injury and was out for a long time. She's only just made her comeback. She just had a boxing fight recently as her first fight back. I think it was last weekend or weekend before. But she was actively rehabbing, actively doing all the training she could as soon as she could to get back in the ring, back in there fighting. So she's still a fighter. But someone who had their last fight a few years ago, got bashed, decided that they would go on a bender for a period of time. They love this. They love just being a fighter on social media. Then they're not a fighter. They're just a talker. Fighting is something that is an action. If you're not doing the action, you're not a fighter. So the action is training full time. So training every day as much as you can to get to where you need to be, whether it be to get out the other side of an injury or whether it be to get ready for your next fight. Also, if you're not injured, actively training to look for fights. The minute you're not, you're no longer a fighter. Plain and simple. Stop calling yourself a fighter. Get off of social media and go to admit to everyone that you're just a gamer or something. I don't know, and you like Muay Thai because no longer a fighter. If you're still considering yourself a fighter and you haven't had a fight in years, and you're trying to convince yourself that you're still a fighter, sorry, but you're an idiot. And it's time to wake up and smell the roses and probably call it a day or start fucking fighting. Pretty simple. Fight. You want to be a fighter? Fight. Yep, that's it. Easy. And good night. Peace.